Okay. Make sure you get my good side, huh?
Okay.
Oh. You're funny. No challenges here.
There are no name tags, so.
Oh, that's Sean Kennedy's. I just don't want to forget. He forgot at the last meeting. Oh. So I just didn't want to forget.
Wherever he said you could do it.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to sit right here. Oh, thank you.
Have a nice summer. Anyone with a problem called Terry Goodrich. You can do that for 911.
Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. It is 5:30 p.m. I see that Wilbraham Public Access is here recording. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? Okay, we will do roll call in alphabetical order. Don Davenport.
Here.
Terry Goodrich. Here. Sean Kennedy. And Michelle Boudreau here. Please stand. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for being here tonight. So we will begin with the discussion of financial implementations of the reconfiguration with Aaron Osborne.
Alrighty, lucky me. So you all have, as a packet, a report on projected reconfiguration costs. That's sort of the big packet that's stapled together. There are some addendums to that you'll find as spreadsheets. I will reference those. We won't go through those in detail. Those are also linked in the document, so if you have the PDF document that may, Aaron, have you sent that out, or will that go out? Okay. So if you have the PDF, you will be able to hyperlink over to those documents. So John, a little while ago, asked me to prepare moving costs and then ongoing costs for reconfiguring the district. I worked with predominantly Mike Messier, Dave Rogers to do a lot of the moving costs. As you'll see, the elementary costs of moving is really just moving costs. There aren't going to be significant ongoing changes. It's reshuffling classrooms. But then with 8th grade moving to potentially to the high school in most of these, we did have conversations with Sharon Moberg, Steve Hale, and John DeRosia in terms of the sort of ongoing implications of that. So I just want to be fair and make sure that everyone knows that I think the appropriate people were collaborated with and that they contributed to this report. So I'm going to move right into, if you follow, I will go through section by section. I will try to give a fairly detailed recounting of what those costs look like. If you think I'm giving too detailed a recounting, please feel free to tell me to step up and I can move up a couple levels. So if you go to the introduction to section 1, there's a written piece. A couple things I want to make sure to call out. First, the detailed basis for the costs is hyperlinked there. It is also provided to you tonight in this colorful spreadsheet here. I won't go over every one of those tonight, but that should detail how we came up with some of these costs. not knowing exactly where some people would go and how those moves would look, we provided general costing information rather than say classroom specific, and we tried to create groups of teachers and like individuals in terms of how we approach that costing of each group, how long it would take. It's also really important to remember there's build-out work that will need to happen for some of this. Contractor lead times right now are very long. I think we would be challenged to finish this in the summer if we weren't, given about 6 months to prepare. So that kind of pushes the timeline, particularly for when we're talking about TWB. If we're going to, I believe options 3 and 4 involve recommissioning TWB. Recommissioning TWB would take significant work and significant time to do. Most of the other buildings are strict moves. We think we could do the moves with less notice, but when we're talking about some of the really significant build-out work and recommissioning TWB, that's where we're going to run into some challenges. And you'll see also there's some significant costing around that as well. TWB has been out of sort of the school rotation for, I want to say about 6 years now. So, there's certainly some lapses. Yep.
So it's 6 months for anything involving TWB. Could you just repeat how many months?
I would say 3 or 4 months lead time before summer. We would have to be able to line up contractors to do the office build-out work. Some of this is, I would be hopeful that we might be able to do some of this in-house, but this is above and beyond what any of our custodial facility staff would be doing in a typical summer. So, all of this is based on hiring private contractors to do most of this work. Again, we might be able to, do it for a little bit less if we did it in-house, maybe hire teams. We've struggled to hire in a lot of cases in the summer and even during the year. So, I don't want to promise that we could do it internally. So moving on, I'll start with one-time and moving costs for option 1, which is the next page. I'm not sure I can go through each item. A lot of these items are repeated because the move-outs and builds are very similar. We took Mile Tree and MRHS pre-K classrooms to Green Meadows and the TWB program to Minnetonka Regional High School as one group. There's only the one classroom or 2 classrooms of students at TWB is relatively small. We felt like if we grouped all of those together in one set of moves, that would conduct one significant set of moves, which we've costed, if you look at the costing sheet, at about $24,000. So then to move TWB classrooms, offices, supplies, IT infrastructure, we have a lot of files in there. All of our special education files are there. We have to rehome those. We have, honestly, closets full of materials still there and books still there. We have health services rooms. We have a pantry there, all of which would have to move. So we sort of grouped that into one other big move piece and called that $24,000. In the process, we would be looking to build out classrooms into an office at Green Meadows School for student services. So you can see the office build out plus the cubicle build out comes to that $58,850. Then we would have to do a similar build out at Wilbraham Middle School for health and safety into an office and 4 cubicles, similarly $58,850 again. Moving grade 8 classrooms and staff from Wilbraham Middle School to Minnetonka, $24,000. We'd also be needing to up the number of mini splits that year that we move into Minnetonka. That would mean doubling the number of students we move in 1 year. So we're estimating that we would want to put in about 9 additional mini split units for that $74,250. We would need to add some classroom technology at Minichog for grade 8 to accommodate grade 8. That would be $50,000. And then in order to accommodate the number of students, we'd be looking to, in that courtyard number 2, the courtyard that's further over near the cafeteria by the gymnasium, build out a gazebo, some pavers, some places for students to congregate. So during lunches and things like that, before school and after school. So total cost of that relocation, we're looking at $413,950. Option 2, very similar. So again, moving Mile Tree, Minichog Regional, Pre-K, $24,000 with TWB program. TWB classroom offices, same offices, $24,000. Build out of classrooms at Green Meadows, $58,950. Build out of classrooms at WMS, $58,950. These are repetitive, so I'm not going into a lot of detail. Grade 8 classrooms, again, this should be in every scenario, the 9 mini splits, the classroom technology, the gazebo. And then this move predicates swapping grades at the elementary level. So swapping grades 2, 3, 4, and 5 between Stony Hill and Sewell Road. I came up with 2.5 grade swaps equals one grade swap. 2 1/2 grade swaps equals 1 grade swap. So we came out to 24,000 of that. So those relocation costs would come to $438,150.
I'm sorry, could you go into, of option 2, number 3, why the costs are different than in option 1? And then can you explain option number 9?
Oh, I am sorry. Option 3, item 3 should be identical to item 2. I apologize, it should be $46,200 and $12,650. All of those should be the same. I apologize, we've been moving numbers around. You'll see in 3 and 4 the items A and B underneath the major heading. I apologize, those are incorrect. We made some changes to our assumptions given the cost of contracting right now. And I updated all the bolded numbers, but I didn't update the sub numbers in the preceding ones. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What about number 9? Could you explain what that swapping grades means?
Sure. So we are going to be between those schools. Give me 1 second. So between those 2 schools, if you look up at the top, we're going this option 2 considers making Stony Hill and Sewell Road 2 to 5 program schools. So we are predicating a certain number of swaps. So at Stony Hill, 2 and 3 would remain there, right? Because some 2 and 3 classrooms would remain there. And at Sewell Road School, half of the 4 and 5 classes would remain there. So then we're moving 2 sets of classrooms times a half for effectively one full class move. We're calling one full class move roughly that $24,000.
That is desks, chairs, stuff like that? Is that what
it's teacher supplies. I mean, it's the full supplies, books, materials, bookcases, things like that, things that are essential to the classroom. All academic materials, so we have closets that would have academic materials. There would be grade appropriate phys ed materials possibly that would go.
Okay.
Yep.
I understand, thank you.
Yep.
So does that change the total?
Does that change the total? No. No, it changed the items in the A and B to item 3. I just missed changing the non-highlighted items. Those are subsets of that 58,950.
So on the option 1, it's 58,850. So should it be 58,950?
68.
Yeah, 68.
No, it should all be,
It looks like to me, math-wise.
yeah, it should all be 58,850,
Yeah,
so I apologize.
so then it would be 413,950 plus 24, right?
Yes. So there's
So that would
yeah,
be
so I've got a little bit, yes, I
430,
apologize. So that's
437,
200 less, yes.
950.
It'd be $200 less,
Okay.
sorry.
No, just trying to get
Yep.
everything.
Yeah. So each of the nets should be $200 less. So option 3 is where we start talking about reopening TWB. This would close WMS. It would move grades 6 and 7 into TWB. It would also include the grade swaps with Stony Hill and Sewell Road. So we looked at some of the costs to reopen TWB. We would need to update the phone and PA system. We would need to upgrade the cameras. That's been on our capital list as something we've been looking at. The wireless access points and switches and network are also on our capital plan as items that would need to be taken care of. And then we would need to update the classroom technology. So that comes to the $225,000. Move Mile Train MRHS, pre-K classrooms. Item 2 is similar to the priors. Move TWB classroom offices, similar to the priors. Again, the build out, this should be 58,850. Number 5 should be 58,850. So those together will take 200 off of the bottom. My apologies. Item 6 is another duplicate, moving grade 8 classrooms and staff from WMS to MRHS. 7 is the mini splits. 8 is the gazebo and pavers. 9 is the classroom technology for Minichog. 10 is the swapping the grades between Stony Hill and Sewell Road. And then moving grades 6 and 7 from Wilbraham Middle School to TWB would be 48,000. So that's 2 full class moves.
Before you go on, could you speak to the footnote on that page?
Oh, yes. It's the same on both. I apologize, I missed that one going through. So right now, TWB is the one building that doesn't have an energy management system, so it wasn't upgraded as we did some of the other buildings in the past. It doesn't have some of the indoor air quality improvements that we've done in other schools in the district. It's not really an issue given the small footprint we have there currently, but if we were to fully utilize it as a school, we would need to start making some plans to update those items fairly quickly. So I'm saying in the next 2 to 3 years, we would need to be thinking about updating those 2 items.
Are you aware that TWB is well water and septic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would that have to be upgraded as well?
That what didn't come up is something that was a significant problem. It once had as many students as grade 6 and 7 would have now, so I think that the assumption is it would be adequate to the needs. But it's one of those things, you don't pay money in sewer, but you have to end up paying money in some septic support costs and things like that. You don't pay money for water, but you pay for well issues later at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask a question about the room, student services, I'm sorry, the move of TW, the movement to Wilbraham Middle School, so for the closure of buildings, what is it necessary for student services and health and safety to move to Wilbraham Middle in order for there to be grade 6 and 7?
For grade 6 and 7 to be at TWB?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the spaces they're in, the space that student services in is the principal's office area. So that student services would absolutely have to move out of that area. The health services, some of our other support services there. So Gina Khan's works out of there. Our outreach coordinator works out of there, and there's a food pantry in there. Those would all have to move. Those occupy actual classrooms in many cases. So there's a suite of classrooms along the front that we have a lot of health services supplies, the pantry and other things in. So that there would be a need to find them space somewhere. So if we were closing WMS, I apologize. It would need to be moved out somewhere.
Okay,
Not WMS, I apologize. We'd have to find a space for them.
okay.
My
Thank you.
apologies.
That's okay, thank you.
So option 4, again, similarly, we're reopening TWB. We'd be moving Mile Tree and MRHS pre-K classrooms to Green Meadows, TWB program to MRHS. TWB classroom offices, same thing. Building out classroom offices, again, 58,850. Number 5, health and safety. To WMS or somewhere else we might have space. We'd be reutilizing WMS as an elementary, so we might reconsider how we use that space. The intent was for that to be more of a placeholder, so I should have been clear about that. Again, 58,850. Grade 8 classrooms, 6, 24,000. Mini splits, again, for Minichog. Gazebo, paving, courtyard 2, 100,000. Classroom technology. Allocating grades 1 to 5 among Sewell Road and Wilbraham Middle School. This would be 5 sort of full half-grade swaps equaling 2.5 full-grade swaps. So this would be more in the $60,000 range, and then moving grades 6 and 7 from WMS to TWB at $48,000. Similar. I'll say in items, yep. This also has the energy management system concern and the other air quality concerns. So those are sort of the one-time costs. The next item we looked at were recurring operating costs that would continue. One of the things we also would propose if we're looking to make this significant change is that the district considers concerning the adoption of full-day pre-K for 4-year-olds. This would expand and there would be additional costs. I share that in one of the appendixes at the end. I think it's Appendix B. Nope. A. Yep. So that's some of the costs for that are in Appendix A. We won't dwell on that because it's sort of an add-on option to be considered. But we just thought we'd share that. There's some research we've provided. You can link to it. I didn't share it tonight because some of the research studies are pretty long. You're welcome to delve into those. Again, I think as we look to do this, anywhere where we're moving students into WMS, to make WMS the middle school for the entire district, or TWB, so any of these options have regional agreement implications. Appendix B, we did share some thoughts on what some options might be for that. So what would happen is either Wilbraham or Hamden would effectively be picking up all of the capital costs for all middle school students. And that may seem a little inequitable relative to the regional agreement, the approach. And so we looked at sort of 3 approaches that might be part of the regional agreement if we were to do that as consideration. So going into the various options, this is a little more set up as tables going forward. These were a little simpler to do that way, require a little less language. So option 1, same as option 1 previously, annual cost savings. If we were to completely close TWB and return it to Hamden, we could see as much as $118,959 in savings. We'd be eliminating Green Meadows Middle School and benefits. We'd be eliminating the Green Meadows assistant principal, which has already happened. We'd reduce Wilbraham Middle School nursing to 1.5 FTE from 1.8. We'd reduce WMS counselors by 1 FTE. Yes, and we reduced one Wilbraham Middle School assistant principal. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I went through and I thought maybe I missed it. Then we look at expenses. We would lose a number of choice seats. So there's been a lot of discussion about school choice and our utilization of school choice. We're estimating that over the next 4 years, so this would be at the culmination of the 4-year period, and you'll see in Appendix C, I highlight that, and you will see that when I do the annualized costing for all of these plans, that sort of change over time is included in that. So we provide that costing information. So we're expecting that would be 100 seats at $5,000 plus a seat. The additional sort of 10% baked in there is for additional special education monies we receive for those students who are on IEPs. We would effectively take the 8th grade assistant principal from Wilbraham Middle School and bring it to the high school. We would add a 0.5 FTE nurse at the high school, including benefits. Adding an additional admin assistant at the high school plus benefits, adding an additional school counselor. You see some of these do come from the middle school, so they're just swaps. The school counselor, same thing, plus benefits. We would be looking to add a hall monitor plus benefits. This would be a full-time person to do hall monitoring duties, similar to a paraprofessional, but probably on an independent contract. So we have net expenses of $885,000. Now this is at the culmination. That choice amount will decline, and you'll see how we get there in the next section. Okay. I think one of the really important items is a lot of the options where TWB is closed. You'll see some asterisks down the bottom. Some of this is contingent upon Hamden releasing HWRSD from its lease with the building and the cost structure associated with that. So we've talked about if we were to fully move out of there, we still have a lease, we'd still need to heat the building, we'd still need to do certain things as part of that agreement. Similarly, you'll see later with closing WMS, that same asterisk exists. If we were to close Wilbraham Middle School, some of those cost savings would be contingent on Wilbraham letting us out of that lease. And I think one even considers closing Stony Hill School, which again would require Wilbraham to let us out of that lease to receive those savings. So total costs, once we get to the very end of the four-year decline in choice, would be $56,041 additional costs per year. I think it's important to recognize these are all in 2024 costs. So, you know, as our costs escalate each year due to inflation, things like that, there'd be some small changes, but in 4 years, it shouldn't be tremendous. I just thought it's worth mentioning that. So option 2, I think is actually very similar in operating costs. So at the elementary level, like I said, we're kind of just reshuffling the deck. We have costs related to moving teachers, but once they're moved, we have the same number of teachers at each grade level.
I'm sorry, can you just hang on one second. Can you go back to option 1, please?
Sure. Option number 1?
Yep.
Yep.
So you're saying the annual loss of school choice is 100 seats a year?
Mm-hmm. 100 total seats. So by the end of 4 years...
So we're talking 25 seats?
25 a year. And if you
yeah,
go
so if you're saying that's the annualized cost,
so
if you have it at 100,
yeah.
you should probably have it at 25, correct?
So when we get to section 3, you'll see that. And if you go to Appendix C, you'll see the decline in choice. And when we get to section 3 of this report, you'll see I've costed out each of the next 4 years. So if you bear with me, we'll get there. It's kind of
okay, it just says annual additional expenses is $550,000 from school choice. That's 100 seats,
right.
but it's not.
Well, once we get to the end of this, the 4-year cycle of losing 24 a year, that's where we will eventually end up. So this is long-term costing. We're talking long-term costs.
So it's not annual additional expenses, it's a 4-year?
So,
So
Sean,
that's,
if I might, if you look at section 3, I think it might help with the questions you're asking about.
Where am I looking?
It's section 3. It
if
says
you go to
summary
section 3, option 1, and I could just go through that quickly.
It's got the table that has some red and some
Okay.
black in it. So tables that have that. Are you there?
Yeah.
It's part 3.
Yes. So when you get to option 1 of section 3, you'll see I've done a 4-year cost out for each year. So in year 1, we're going to have the moving costs. We're going to have operating savings. We're going to have operating expenses net of choice, so I pulled choice out. Then we'll have the net choice impact. So the year 1 budget impact, if you add all of those numbers up, will be it will increase our budget by $57,491. Year 2, the moving costs are gone, right? We've paid the moving costs. So we have operating savings that will continue. We have operating expenses, net of choice, that will continue. And now our choice impact goes up from that $137,500 in the first year to $275,000 in the second year. So we end up with $218,959 in savings. When we get to year 3, we have the same operating savings, we have the same operating expenses. Then the choice impact goes up to $412,500. So now our year 3 budget impact is a decrease of $81,459. When we get to year 4 and beyond, so every year, including year 4, year 5, year 6, and so on, we have the same operating savings, we have the same operating expenses, net of choice, and then our choice impact goes up to the full $550,000.
Doesn't our operating savings increase each year because due to the contract, aren't we guaranteeing,
Right, and I indicated that all of this is in 2024 costs, just for the sake of there will be, our costs will go up a little bit, our savings will go up a little bit, the net should be somewhere in this range. I could up each by 2% each year if you felt that was necessary. I was just trying to give a sense of $2024 to people.
Understood, thank you.
So does that help you understand what I was getting at there with option 1 there?
Well, no, this makes sense, but this is confusing.
Okay.
The original option 1 is just a little confusing for me.
Okay.
Because it says it's an annual, but then,
Sure.
yeah.
If it's easier, we could just keep going through section 3.
Yes, I mean, if section 3 is helpful, we can do that.
Because basically in section 2 or whatever section we're looking at, it just looked at sort of the maximum impact. Section 3 steps you through year by year. So would it be your preference as a committee to go through just section 3? Okay.
Just section 3? Okay. Okay. So option 2, we continue to, oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm going through to that. So option 1 we just went through. We'll go to option 2.
It's the same thing.
Option 2 is going to be similar.
It's the same, right? Same numbers? It's the same numbers?
The moving costs go up. Moving costs go up a bit. I apologize. There
The numbers
is.
aren't.
Yep. So, yes. So I apologize. That 24,000 somehow. There should be, the moving cost should have another 24,000, has another 24,000, it's at 57, should be $24,000 higher. I apologize, that should be 81,000. But then we get into years 2, 3, and 4, those are almost identical to option 1. Option 2, year 1, we have moving costs of $711,150, operating savings of $930,750, operating expenses net of choice of $432,750, and then a total choice impact for that year is $137,500, giving us a 1-year budget impact of $350,650. So, like I said, these sort of TWB reopening costs get pretty significant. Year 2 operating savings, we get rid of moving costs of $930,750, $750, operating expenses net of choice $432,750, choice impact $275,000. Total year 2 budget impact is $223,000 in savings. Year 3, the same operating savings, the same new operating expenses, net of choice, and then we have $412,500 in choice impact, for a total of $85,500 in savings. Year 4 and beyond, we have operating savings, the same, operating savings net of choice, and the net choice impact is an additional $550,000. So now we get to $52,000 of net costs going forward. Option 4, moving costs, the $747,150, operating savings $832,280, expenses net of choice $432,750, choice impact of $137,500. By year 2, we've eliminated moving costs. Operating savings the same, operating expenses net of choice the same, choice impact goes up to $275,000. Year 3, choice impact goes to $412,500, and then by year 4, choice impact is the full $550,000. For a total budget impact of $150,470. And so you have 3 appendices. One is expected costs of adding full-day pre-K for 4-year-olds. Again, like I said, this would be in addition to what we've talked about before. I think we've been asked a few times, you know, what would be something that would make the most significant impact on the district? This is something we think would have very significant impact on the district going forward. Again, it would take a long time to materialize. These would be pre-K students, but there's a lot of research. If you look at the research we provided that speaks to graduation rates, to success in college and life, and non-college activities that are evinced by that.
Wouldn't this $505,000 be offset some by the fees that we would be collecting for pre-K?
Yes, we could take in some more fees from that. We honestly don't know what we would put in at fees. This was designed to give sort of a sense of what that would look like. We would use those fees to offset costs.
I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something, but it's not.
Oh, John, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, it's okay. We both started at the same time.
So regional agreement.
Oh, I do know. Can I?
Oh, sure.
Also, I would say that we don't have an item tonight to talk about the feedback that I got during my community conversations over the summer, so I think we'll be talking about that next time. But I can share another concern that came up is if we move all the preschool to Green Meadows in order to relieve the overcrowding at Mile Tree and keep it at a half day, that would be a real hardship for Wilbraham parents because they'll be bringing kids over and then very shortly turning around and picking them up. But that they felt it would be a good benefit if we could do it in the context of a full day, because then it's not so much back and forth. So it also has a benefit that we've heard from our own constituents as well as being backed by research.
So just to touch on the regional agreement considerations, if we were to move all of the grade 6 to 7 students to one school in either Hamden or Wilbraham, there should be language that talks about the changing sort of capital commitments. So either TWB would be picking up capital costs for a building, or Wilbraham Middle School would, so one of the two towns would. So the first would be to consider fully regionalizing that building, similar to MRHS. It would put it sort of right back in that discussion we're having, though, back and forth about how we address MRHS capital costs. So that would become a bit challenging. The other might be to establish an intermunicipal fee that would be paid by the sending district to the hosting district, possibly on a per student basis. You know, based on, and I'm not sure what, and that town receiving the money would probably want to have a transparent system for how they use and allocate those funds. The other would be to split the capital costs by a proportionate share amount that would then be paid by each town for each capital project. That would involve sort of establishing a methodology and a consistent methodology for dealing with that. Very much like, you know, how we deal with the assessment system, where, you know, that's a moving target year to year, depending on when the capital cost was arrived at. So each one of them has sort of their benefits and drawbacks. There may be more. Those were some that we just kind of came up with out of interest. And then finally, Appendix C addresses the incremental change in school choice over time. So you'll see the numbers that we used, 137, 500, 275,000, 412, 500, and 550,000. We described that it assumes losses of $25 per student, 25 students per year, 5,000 per student, plus a sort of a just guess at $500 per student for potential IEP needs. That seems consistent with what we've had in the past. And then Steve provided some numbers based on enrollment to sort of project what our enrollment is going to look like and why we want to consider, why we would want to look at bringing down our choice numbers over the next few years. This doesn't mean that that 550 is a final ultimatum. We do talk about, we would want to look at that after about 2 years and maybe reconsider what our numbers should look like and how those should be allocated. But at least for the purpose of this planning, we don't want to commit to taking more than, this does retain some school choice students in Minnetonka, but we don't want to commit to more than that number at the moment. Yeah.
That's it. So just as Aaron was sort of winding up, I think that is something we can sharpen the pencil on a little bit. But if you look at the first year, which is this projection right here, this is with no choice students added for the incoming freshman next year. You'd still be getting close to 1,200 students in the high school. So I think that was a definite no choice. I think probably the year after that would be a likely definite no choice. Then we could think about what the ideal size of the class might be, and that might change the out years a lot. But the key is that the reduction in choice will be consuming a lot of the savings in personnel and other capital maintenance costs that we would be achieving by redistricting.
So my question is, what's the total number of choice students that we have now?
I don't know that exact number. It is in the, it is in the 125, 150 range. 105 at Minnetonka? Okay, yeah, district-wide we have more than that though, because we have some choice kids at some other schools.
So 105 at Minnetonka, and you're estimating
Yes.
up to 150 students.
District-wide, 120, give or take. Sorry, Mancheg's a little lower than I thought. I didn't realize it was at 105.
And what do you put on those students as, do you have a general idea of what each student approximately costs the school?
Yeah, we could pull every student, but it can be a moving target. IEP needs can vary. Students, sometimes
Just
we...
a rough numbers.
Well, that's
You're
where
saying
we're
that
coming. We do, every single student, we get the base 5,000 for. That's period, every single student. Any student with an IEP, we get additional monies for. So that can be anywhere from a couple $100 to thousands of dollars, $10,000 or more sometimes. Some choice students require a one-to-one paraprofessional, so that can be an additional $25,000. But the number of choice students that we take in on IEPs isn't that big. It's probably consistent with our percentage of IEP students, which is around 17–18% in the district, and many of them don't cost that much. Many of them are pretty reasonable. So that's where we come to that sort of 10% estimate. It's really hard to come up to an exact number of what that would be.
So I guess my point is, by reducing those numbers, does it offer any savings in expense of staff or because you're having less numbers of kids?
Can I?
Go ahead, John. Yeah.
So, with the exception of one class at Green Meadows, we've been really clear about not adding choice students that would add staff. So, in terms of the cost, my perspective is the cost is zero, because you're already committed to the staff. You have an empty seat in the classroom. You're filling that seat to get some choice money in. If it's a special ed student, you have that plus their actual cost of special ed services are reimbursed, which is why the number is more than $5,000. So the only way to get any personnel savings would be if the classes were reduced to such an extent that you could reduce some staff. But since we didn't put choice in to keep staff, I don't see us being able to reduce staff by taking out the choice. You're welcome.
Does anyone have any questions with what was presented so far?
I'll make those small edits and have Aaron resend it out. The items there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Have you reviewed these yet?
No, we are moving on to that next.
Excellent, thank you.
We're looking at the sample schedules for the 8th grade.
And Aaron, you're correct, for 23-24, we're closer to 115 in school choice.
Okay.
I have the next 6 years in school choice, so I was looking at 24-25. Superintendent Provost asked me to come tonight to present some possible scheduling options. One of the first option I'll talk about looks like this.
Excuse me, I don't have that.
Okay.
I have these other sheets here. Oh, cool, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Did everyone else get these?
Yes.
The classroom build out and moving costs, stuff like that?
This option most closely mirrors Minichog's current schedule. Wilbraham Middle School's current schedule now has a drop block schedule, which means their class only meets 4 times a week, not 5 times a week. So in this schedule, the classes would meet 5 times a week, and they would rotate through a block where they would experience a long block, similar to Minichog's long block. Some of the benefits of this particular schedule are the instructional minutes. When you look at a total week, there's more instructional minutes in this schedule than in Wilbraham Middle School's current schedule.
By mirroring the high school, it provides advantageous opportunities for students who are excelling in certain content areas to bump up to the high school and take a high school class without it disrupting their rest of their middle school experience. It puts their related arts blocks at the end of the day, which allows us to transition the Wilbraham Middle School related arts staff would teach in the mornings at Wilbraham Middle School and then come here to teach the related arts for the 8th grade. And it allows for us to take some of the content that we're currently teaching to 9th grade and push it down to the 8th grade. For example, the Freshman Foundations, which is a student skills class, we would push into a related arts rotation for the 8th grade students. We're still working with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed to find out if the civics requirement, which is a requirement that students do a civics project in 8th grade and in the high school, if they're combined, does that mean they only do one civics project or do they have to do 2? We've gotten various answers on that, so we're still working on that because currently the 8th grade's social studies curriculum is a civics-based curriculum. I'm just trying to think of some other benefits. That's basically it. That would be option 1. And again, there's infinite options. We just put together 2 models for you this evening. Option 2 closely mirrors the current Wilbraham Middle School 8th grade schedule. So that is a drop block schedule, where the length of the classes in total minutes over the course of the week is lower in instruction. It does add what I call a WIN block. WIN stands for what I need. So 3 times a week for about 20 to 30 minutes, students would be able to get with the teacher of the content that they're struggling with to kind of get some extra help or some intervention in a tier 2 intervention block. It also includes the advisory. We would implement the Character Strong advisory, which we have here at the high school. It has the same related arts scheduling at the end of the day to prevent loss of staff. That loss of staff is if all of a sudden Wilbraham Middle School only needs 2/3 of a gym teacher, that creates a whole lot of moving around of staff all over the district. So by John DeRosa and I working together, we can retain the same staffing that would just move during the day. I think that's about it.
Can I throw in one more? Sure. Because this is one that I asked Steve if he could develop. Although I really like the simplicity of option 1, the one thing I don't like about it is the length of each of the periods. And the middle school is increasing its math block because they found they couldn't cover the content in 45 minutes. So this gets closer to the hour that we're finding kids really need in order to get through the math curriculum. So, sort it out.
Even though it's fewer minutes per week because they don't rotate through the double block.
And they don't meet 5 days a week.
Right.
That's the biggest thing is the drop block versus the everyday. Again, these aren't the models, these are 2 options. And once we know definitively, there would be a lot more effort spent on trying to come up with a schedule that works. In all scheduling, whether I was at Sewell Road, Wilbraham Middle School, or Minjog, lunch is what dictates the schedule. Because you've got to freeze students in a lunch block so that once they move, we're all in the same class, and then we transition to a new class. Well, 3 of you have already had lunch, and 4 of us haven't. So you have to have a frozen block per se of time where you can rotate everyone through lunch. I do want to say that the 8th grade and how we have designed it so far has its own area, but I cannot say that they will be totally insulated from the high school students. They're going to be eating lunch with 18-year-olds and older. They're going to be, using the gymnasium with their phys ed teacher with 18-year-olds. We don't have a separate wing. So those are some of the things I just want to get out there, because it's, I don't want folks to think that we have the ability to do that.
Thank you, Steve. Which option are you leaning towards?
Well, probably, if they were rolling in tomorrow, I'd probably go with this one. Again, because I think it matches the curriculum, and I don't want to upset the great work that's been done to bring in some of the new math curriculums. And I think in any case, although this doesn't match up with high school, if we have a kid who's soaring through social studies, we can figure out a way to get them into a 9th grade social studies and get them what they need in their 8th grade experience.
Or math.
Or math, whatever the subject is.
Oh, great. That's important.
It would be flat. I mean, it wouldn't work as neatly as this, but we can make it work.
Excellent. Thank you.
Is there an opportunity on the first option where you have the related arts blocks 1 and 2? Is there an opportunity to put those win blocks in those for students that need that?
We can look at that. It would mean that you would probably have to, in that schedule, what you would do is you'd reduce that long block experience to a regular 43, and then that savings from the 85 would probably become your 2 days of advisory and your 3 days of win block.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Also, one other question.
Sure.
So, in the morning when the buses drop off, so buses come at different times, for those that need to take it, is there a separate area for the 8th graders, so it's not, hanging out in the hallways at 6:45?
That would be something that we would have to work out, yeah. So we have kids here at 6:45 in the morning, because we're already at our posts, and teachers aren't here until 7:25. So it becomes a little bit of an issue to try and figure out where do we put 200 kids that are not, and supervised, that are not around the other students. So that's the hard part. In other schools, the buses pull up and they wait, because the doors to the school don't open until a certain time, and then all the buses release at the same time. Kids get out of parent cars. We can't do that here. First of all, if we do that, we're going to send the elementary run into nightmare. So we have to take them as soon as the bus comes in, they get off and go inside.
What do they do now?
That's what they do. So we,
Do they go to their classroom when they come out early?
no, we have the CAF, we open the gym, there's this huge main hallway that they're hanging out in, the library's open at 7 a.m., so there's a bunch of different options for them. A lot of it is breakfast. Now that the lunch program is free, a lot of them go grab something to eat. But yes, that would be some of those details that we've got to work out. Yeah.
Do you feel those details are insurmountable, or do you feel that we can come up with?
Yeah, there's always a way. There's a will, right?
Yeah.
You can figure it out. If I had to think right now, maybe if that courtyard has a roof, we could they could go out there.
You mean here?
So no, in that courtyard 2, this would be courtyard 1.
Okay.
Courtyard 2, as you walk, did you park back here?
Yeah, well, no, I parked over here, but I parked over there, yeah.
When you walk out,
Yeah,
you see the glass windows that overlook a courtyard. There's about 7 picnic tables. What we would be building there is a pavilion where kids could eat outside, which would relieve some of the pressure in the cafeteria. So the cafeteria's capacity is 435. So if you multiply 435 by 3 with 3 lunch waves, you're around 1270, right? It doesn't neatly work like that when you're doing a schedule and assigning teachers what lunch to have, right? Band always has to have either first or third. Nobody wants to blow into an instrument after they've eaten a grilled cheese sandwich. So when you do that, you want to create options. And also, kids after the pandemic don't like being in spaces where it's very crowded. Like if you've been to a concert recently, it's a little unsettling. So we have 3 spaces now where kids can eat. There's a cafeteria. We also throw about 3 or 4 tables down Main Street, and they can eat there. And then we have the outside when it's nice out. They can eat in those picnic tables. What we want to do there is create more of a permanent, obviously when it's 0 degrees out, no one's going to eat there. We're not looking for walls or heat or anything, but some sort of pavilion. We think of Spec Pond or that kind of thing, where even if it was raining, you could go and eat.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. More work to be done.
Steve, thank you.
Do you have any additional comments you'd like to add, Aaron or John?
Well, I would like to thank Steve and his team and Aaron and his team for all the work they did over the summer. While I was out meeting with the community, they were, as I think you can tell tonight, really putting a lot of thought into what the finances of this would be and what the actual operational management of it would be at building level. So I think at this meeting, you've probably got more information to think about than in almost any other meeting, so kudos to them.
Does anyone on the committee have any other questions, any comments? So the next meeting we'll discuss this further, and we'll also discuss the community feedback that John had received with his meeting with the community.
Did we settle on a date yet for that meeting?
No. Is everyone available on the 26th?
Yep, I can go.
26 at 5:30.
5:30? Does that work for them? Okay.
Yes.
So next meeting will be Tuesday, so
Can I just check with Steve and Aaron if the goal is to talk more about these? I think I'd feel more comfortable if they were able to be there.
Tuesday the 26th.
Tuesday, 26th,
September 26th.
5:30.
We have DLT from the team.
Okay.
What do you say, you're making facilities?
Sure.
I'm making
Yep, 5:30, 6:30.
Looks doable for me.
thank you so much for
Steve, you
everything.
good?
I don't think it impacts the committee. There's a possibility there's a football game that night. With the crazy weather we had this weekend, we weren't able to play the West Springfield game. So there's talk about moving it to that Tuesday and then moving the subsequent Friday to the Saturday to try and get, because there's no bye week in the high school football. And it doesn't matter. You'd want to get out of here tomorrow, go to the football game before 7 o'clock.
We will make that happen.
So are you trying to sell your season tickets?
Yeah.
All right, may May I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are adjourned 6:33. Thank you, everyone.